Welcome to Tig's Bits. This week, we have the pleasure of interviewing an Emmy Award-winning and social media superstar storm chaser, a man who has chased over 1,000 tornadoes and over 40 hurricanes. He's been interviewed by just about every major news outlet in America, and anytime we've mentioned the weather on this show, his name has come right up. If you want to watch the best, see the best footage of how violent and beautiful Mother Nature can be, then this is the guy to follow. We are thrilled to have Mr. Jeff Piotrowski on with us today, and we'll be discussing his journeys as a storm chaser, his most memorable experiences, and how he prepares to chase storms. Hang on to your hat, folks. This is going to be a good one. What's happening, man?
How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
How you doing, my man?
I've been all good. It's another week.
Another week. Hey, at least the weather's starting to get nice. It's starting to feel like fall. It's not smoking hot anymore. So, that's always good.
Yeah, I think it was like it was about 65 here today and about a 30 dew point. So it was really nice.
Yeah. Well, it's, dude, it feels unbelievable. It feels as good as it's going to feel in Baton Rouge. And it did this weekend too, especially for the LSU and Auburn game. I think it's the first time that I've gone to Tiger Stadium and spent the whole day tailgating and everything, and I didn't sweat. I didn't have to bring a sweat towel.
I don't think I've ever been. Every time I've been to Louisiana, it's been like 90 over 80 with 100 mile an hour winds blowing or something, right?
Yeah, you don't generally come at the best of times, Jeff. You come for the extreme stuff.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
Well, look, we'll jump into it. We have Jeff Piotrowski on with us tonight. We are beyond thrilled to have him on. As everyone knows that we talk about the weather occasionally on here and all the stuff that we see. Chad and I are both weather geeks, and so we are beyond thrilled. Oh yeah, for sure.
I come to the realization that really quick.
Yeah. So to have you on here, man, is a feather in our cap for sure, and we're honored that you'd take your time out to come and visit with us, man. So how have you been doing? And thanks so much for coming on. I know the seasons are kind of quietening down a little bit for a minute.
Quiet is good. I like quiet time too. Trust me, I really do. Because it's so crazy. The spring and tornadoes, and then you have it. But this year we didn't have a break at all, right? It just, got into June, July. I was still chasing tornadoes in June, July in the high plains. It just did not stop. It's just like week after week. It was just nonstop, and then boom, here comes the hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a really crazy year. The pattern's really ramped up, and it's been a crazy year so far, and it looks like this fall and winter is going to be crazy again, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It just never stops for you, does it? So down here we get a break because for us it's hurricanes. I live on the Florida Gulf Coast down here near Santa Rosa Beach, and so it's always hurricanes. For you, man, it's just it's nonstop, right?
Well, between that, and I do like a good blizzard occasionally, right? A good ice storm or a good blizzard. And we get all those here as well, right?
Yeah.
So this winter looks like it'll be interesting. Yeah, I've had some really good blizzard stories to tell, right?
Yeah.
So
we're gonna need to jump into those. Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I remember one of the first times that I ever saw you. Was in during that ice storm, that big ice storm in Texas, or I'd been following you for a little bit before that, but you were reporting on that. That was as extreme as it freaking gets, man. Dipping down well below zero and all of that. It was 2 degrees in North Louisiana where I went up to, which is nuts. We don't get that here.
Yeah, last year when that Arctic front came down, it was like, when you see temperatures go from 70 and you're talking about in 12 hours, temperature's going to be at 10 degrees and the roads are going to be a sheet of ice. People looked at it and they're like, are you serious? And I was like, yes, it's going to drop about 40 degrees in about an hour. And it did, right? So it's just like, it's pretty crazy when that stuff happens, right?
It is. And look, I think this is as good of a place to kind of start and jump into it. I know your story. We kind of know your story of where it all really, I believe your weather enthusiasm began whenever you were involved in a flood back when you were like 14 years old. But tell that story for those that are listening that have never heard that it's nuts, man. It's nuts. And I could see why you would be into it after that.
So when I was a kid, I was, probably not much different than most kids today, except I didn't have the video games, right? So we had to entertain ourselves. So back over in Broken Arrow, just other side of Tulsa, is June 1974. So it was a really warm, beautiful day. It was like mid 80s, and the wind was ripping out of the south in Oklahoma. It's like any other day, right? And so I remember going in at about noon or 1 o'clock that day, and there's a triple point coming out of Oklahoma City, and I didn't know about all the finer details of weather at that time at 14 years old. And I remember there was a storm warning went out, severe thunderstorm warning, and they issued a tornado warning there in Oklahoma City shortly after 1 o'clock. And then, I just had a Road McNally map, right? you put a little dot down and a ruler, and it's like this northeast at 25, and I put another dot down. And after about an hour or so, I was like, wow, hit this city. So I go in around 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I tell my mom, hey, I said, we're going to have tornadoes in Tulsa around 7 o'clock. It's clear blue skies outside. I mean, there's nothing outside. She goes, go outside and play. It's a beautiful day. And I said, I'll go back to my room. I'm going to be waiting for the tornadoes. I went back and I was plotting. I was listening to KRMG radio here in Tulsa, AM 740. And I'm still down here, the teletype going off, with the bell going off. And, there's a new warning out. It kept tracking the warnings and the tornadoes, and it hit this town. And about 6:30, I remember back in the living room, and our house faced the east, but the back of the house faced west toward Oklahoma City, based 100 miles northeast of Oklahoma City. Here comes the big Able. Here comes the big bananas clouds, and big pockets were hanging down. And I told my mom, hey, tornadoes are on their way. They're only about 30 minutes out. And by that time, a tornado warning had been issued, and you could see things were getting bad. About that time, here comes this big, huge tornado in South Tulsa. I could see it from 20 miles east over a Broken Arrow looking west. And I remember my mom looking down at me, and she goes, how did you do that? And the part was, it's like telling her at 1 o'clock, 6 hours earlier that we're going to have tornadoes at 7 o'clock. That kind of freaked her out. So I remember leaving, and it really did. And so we left the house and went to church in town, and took shelter in the basement there. And we had, it was a big outbreak of tornadoes, baseball hail, flooding, the whole 9 yards. And that kind of set me on the path. Within the following year, we had a big flood in Tulsa, right? Big flash flood. And we, at that particular town, used to engrave tombstones after school. It was kind of an interesting job, trust me. Yeah. So I used to engrave, you put the head markers and you put the stencil on there, and you put people's names and dates and all that, and their last messages to their loved ones. So anyway, there's a very interesting after school job. So that particular time in May, you're Memorial Day weekend, delivering tombstones to cemeteries, right? So Memorial Day weekend, I met with my boss and his 5-year-old son, and we're in a 2-ton flatbed truck, and we're out at all the different cemeteries on a Sunday delivering tombstones to different cemeteries. That's what I did for after school work, right? So it rains 10 inches in Tulsa, and there's a big flood. And my boss gets off the expressway and goes on a service road on Mingo Creek, on Mingo Road. And during that time, the Mingo Creek went out of its banks about 6 or 8 feet above flood stage, and it was flooding neighborhoods and flooding the streets. And we went over a bridge at I want to say 31st and Mingo. And when we did, the water came all the way up to the windshield on the 2-ton truck. If you know anything about farm trucks, Louisiana, talking about farm trucks, hauling hay and stuff. They're up there pretty wild. So that happened, and my boss rolled down his window. Water was rushing up under the hood, and he had his 5-year-old boy with him. And I was very athletic in school, junior high. I was really thin, a great swimmer. Paid off this day, and we all got on top of the truck. Well, about 3 blocks away was Hicks Park. It has railroad ties. The railroad ties are now coming down the creek.
Yeah.
Oh my
Boom.
God.
Knocks my boss, knocks him off the truck. They go floating down the raging creek at that point. But just so happened, the editor of the Tulsa World Tribune at the time, he had a house that backed up to Mingo Creek there, and he's watching from the second floor balcony, watching what's happening, that we're getting washed away off this bridge. He calls Tulsa Fire Department. I swim over to the fence as fast as I can. I'm hanging onto the fence. And here comes Tulsa Fire Department, and they're on the other side of the creek. They end up throwing a rope over with a gravel hook, and the firemen, they go across the creek. They grab me, bring me back across the creek, put me on top of the fire truck. By now, the fire truck's underwater, right? We're on top of the fire truck. Really long. That was a 4 or 5 hour ordeal. Jeez. I saw furniture going by, cars going by. Saw somebody got bit by a snake he came out of the water, and the snake was attached to the back of his calf. He was screaming. It was just horrible. freaky stuff. And it's like, so when you're 14 years old and you witness all this, it's like, oh man, this is crazy. So I remember the fire department called the police department. The police said, hey, you got to take this boy back to his house on Broken Arrow. They called my parents and said, hey, your son's alive. He almost got drowned, but he's alive. So I got home like 1 or 2 in the morning. So the next morning, the police called me and they said, hey, did you ever find your boss? And I said, no. And they said, seriously, they found his clothes, but they didn't find him. And but he ripped all his clothes off, and the way he got out of it is kind of it's kind of scary. But that's what happened. Him and his son, he actually was able to get out of the creek by grabbed hold of a thorn bush, and of course he had thorns all the way through his hand. He's stark naked. He had to climb over a fence and then go up and knock on somebody's door and go, hey, I got washed down the creek, right? So you can imagine being stark naked at the front door and something like, hey, I just got washed away down the creek.
I'm alive.
I'm alive.
So probably could care less at that point, you know?
Exactly. So that was how that whole thing transpired. And so that had huge, profound effect on me, right? Almost drowning, seeing the big tornado the year before. So after that, I was like, hey, I really think weather's pretty cool. I think I want to kind of understand it a little bit better, right? It almost cost my life twice. It's so like, hey, I better
get
check
on top of this
out.
thing a little bit. Yeah. That's
I better check this out, right?
Man,
so that's how I got hooked on weather.
Well, I'll tell you, dude, that fight or flight reflex comes in, and there ain't no doubt Jeff Piotrowski's a fighter.
Oh yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yes, you have, man.
Couple times,
you have.
Right?
And of course, we're going to dive into some of those stories and all of that. But you bring up something interesting, something that I wanted to ask, and before I forget it, let's go ahead and get it out there. Animals and doing things in hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, stuff like that, with the snake biting that guy. I mean, what are some of the crazy things that you've seen, the ways animals react? Animals
definitely. If you watch I mean, you're going to hear people tell you different things, and I've watched the animals and the cows and the horses over the years. The things I've physically witnessed and got video of, which is even more important. One of the time, May 15th, 91, up in central Kansas near Wichita, Clearwater, Kansas, there was about 15 horses on top of a ridgeline, and there's just wide open pasture. And there's a big wall cloud spinning, no tornado yet. And all of a sudden, the horses take off running. And about a minute after they left that ridgeline, here comes the tornado. It sets down on top of the ridgeline right where they're at. And then the tornado proceeds to take off northeast, is chasing the horses through a section line, and I'm watching the horses gallop through the field, and they keep turning around, and they're watching the tornado as the tornadoes gallop. You know, as they get into a section line, they have to stop. So it's a weak tornado, but the tornado goes over the horses. I got video of that, but watch them get in the corral, and they're all on top of each other. Their legs are out, and they're on top, and they're stacked on top of each other. So that was a very unusual deal, right? Yeah. You don't see that every day. There's all kinds of things.
That's crazy that the horses, though, knew that was about to happen before it happened.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Right. Pressure.
That's totally
the pressure's
amazing.
dropping.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen the cows do something similar. Cows will do that too as well. You'll see birds. Sometimes you'll see birds just take off in a big flock. What spooked them? Right? There's no lightning or something. And next thing you know, maybe there's a big hailstone comes, hits the ground. They heard it 5 miles away, and all of a sudden, boom! It's on top of us. Right? So the animals definitely will give you a clue that something's about to happen. Right? Not always, but a lot of times, if you just watch the animals will tell you. Yeah, the animals will tell you what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, we use birds a lot whenever we fish. You know, you can see the birds. You know they're feeding. You go find the food. You're going to find the fish and similar things. Mother Nature will talk to you if you just are willing to listen. You know.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, when you're out storm chasing, Mother Nature gives you all kinds of clues and pieces of the puzzle. And if you'll just watch the sky and watch what the birds, just watch around you. When you're outside in the element, if you just watch around you, a lot of times it'll give you clues what's going to happen before it happens. You just got to watch for it, right? You got to be in tune. You got to be in tune to that, right? It's not all about laptops and iPads and iPhones. It's all, hey, what's going outside my window right now, right?
Just look out there and look. Yeah, exactly. Use your eyeballs.
Exactly.
That totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. Well, that gets you started. Of course, you catch the bug only early on, which you could have ran from that very easily, or you run into it, and then what happens there? I know that you've sold you sold building materials. Is that right? And you kind of
No, I built houses in
built
Tulsa.
houses.
So I came right out of high school, and after job work, I was really blessed when I was younger. We had an oil boom going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in the 70s, an energy crisis. So we couldn't, back in 74, 73, 74, 75, we couldn't find enough construction workers. There was like 2,000 to 3,000 houses a year being built in Tulsa Metro, residential houses, plus we had 10 or 15 apartment complexes being built. There was literally not enough crews. I used to insulate houses for a living. And there's foam. You've probably seen foam in walls and doors that are more popular today. But back in the 70s with the energy code, the Southern Baca code, and in order to get a frame inspection, you had to plug all the wires and holes and electrical outlets like in the outside sheeting and out the top plate and the inside. And same thing for commercial. Well, we were so busy that at that time, builders would call me because they knew I did really good work. And they'd call me and says, hey, we got a 6,000 foot house for you over here, or we got this apartment complex ready for you in this building. We got 7 buildings ready. And they had to have the frame inspection. They had to have the house sealed. Well, they couldn't get their frame inspection. You don't get the frame inspection. You can't insulate and you can't sheetrock. You're stopped. The job stops, right? So anyway, I'd get called. I'd go out on Saturday and I'd take a 15, 20 pound tank of foam, and I'd go out and do 4 or 5 houses on a weekend, right? At that time, you're probably billing, I don't know, $500, $700, $800 a day. But again, I'm 16 years old, still going to school, and I'm huffing and puffing, blowing. So I saved up enough money over a couple of years that I went out and bought some lots in South Tulsa in the corners of cul-de-sacs. Well, right after I bought those, there was a flood in Tulsa again. Imagine that. And there's a building moratorium went in effect. So there's no more new subdivisions approved. So I just bought these. No, you see the picture now. So I just bought these lots. Now building moratorium went in effect. Now there's no more lots available because the addition I bought in was one of the very few in South Tulsa. So the same builders I bought the lot from came back to me and says, hey, Jeff, you want to sell your lots? And I said, sure. So they basically almost double my money in about 5 to 6 months. Took that money and then I went to Broken Arrow and I started building houses right when I got out of high school. So I found a banker to back me, and I started building custom homes when I was 18 years old. Right out of high school, I was building custom homes. So I did that for about 25 plus years in Tulsa, and built an average about 20 to 25 houses a year. Started off with smaller homes, the little 1,500, 2,000 footers, call them the beginner homes. And then the last 4 or 5 years I built, I was building the 10,000 footers, the big estate properties.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
anyway,
awesome.
I understand construction real well. So when storms and bad weather happens, I understand what causes them to come apart and how to rebuild them and all those kind of things, right? So
well, and even more importantly, you know how to get in position in those storms, and you put that's the thing that's the most fun of watching you and how we've all discovered you. Is you put yourself in position to intercept whatever it is that's coming in, and you're there. But you do it safe. You do it safely.
Right.
You explain that, when you're in the heat of the moment. But I'm not going to lie. There's times when I'm watching, I'm like, "Good Lord, Jeff, what are you doing here? I don't know. This is scary."
Well, there's a lot of times you can't, whether it's a tornado chase or if it's a hurricane chase, you can't always see things around me, like like if I'm on the second floor of a parking garage or third floor, even though I know it's going to flood underneath me, like Hurricane Ike, down in Corpus Christi, we knew it was going to have a 15, 20 foot storm surge. So we got a 5-story parking garage, right, and an elevated parking garage, and the water did flood around us, right. And but a lot of times you can't see everything you want to see on a live shot, but you're always thinking about, if the worst happens, can I escape? Kind of like Hurricane Katrina. I was on the I-10 bridge on the northeast side of New Orleans, right? And I knew the storm surge was coming because I had data just tell me, hey, I got a 30, 40-foot storm surge just south of me coming ashore, right? So we knew it was going to be really bad. So you're waiting for the on-ramp, and as soon as the storm surge coming in, went up the on-ramp about 30 foot in the air, and then went through the North Iowa walls as the Hurricane Katrina made landfall, right? That was insane, right? So it's all those kind of things. Prepping, getting ready for being safe is 90%. We call it scouting. It's no different than fishing or golfing or anything else. You're scouting. You're out scouting. It's like, ooh, I know this structure is going to come down if the wind's out of the east, and this is not really well built. This is going to go fly in this direction. So you put that in the back of your mind as you're driving through and you're assessing what area am I going to be safe and what area is not going to be safe. You put a mental note, like, hey, if these big trees on this road here are going to come down, this road's going to be blocked. So I know as soon as the wind's going to 100 out of the east, this road's going to be impassable, and I don't want to be on this road, right? So you're making mental notes of all that stuff while you're driving, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
That was a question that I had for you: is how do you scout? Which that's the proper word. That totally makes sense. How do you scout those areas? Do you have, like, if you're looking at a map of the Gulf South, anywhere where the most of the hurricanes come in, I'm sure you know where your little hot spots are, where you have the best cell service, and
not always.
Not always.
Not always.
You're learning. I guess you're putting it together. You've been doing it a lot lately down here.
You scout it out. Well, you scout it out, but those days, with the Starlink now, which I have Starlink, and that is a huge deal.
Okay, that's awesome.
You got to have Starlink. Find those places. And there's some apps I use. One's called Elevation Finder, which I'll personally love. It's like $5 or something. But anyway, wherever I'm driving on the road, I just start the app, and it knows where I'm at on the road with the center of asphalt, and it says your elevation right here is either in meters or in feet. So I know how far I'm above elevation wise. I'm 1 foot above elevation or 5 feet. So I know if the storm surge is forecasting at 7 or 10 foot storm surge, then I know, hey, the storm surge. And I download the local maps as far as where the storm surge is going to get in the back bays and what inlets are going to be cut off. And so you're looking at all those things, right?
Yeah.
And so
So how do you go? How do you go from building houses to knowing how to read stuff like that? I mean, there's a transition somewhere,
right.
in between. How does that happen?
Right. So I went to work. So after I got a building business in '94, I went to work for a company I work for now called Barron Weather, and they're out of Huntsville, Alabama. We build radars and storm tracking equipment and for television and government, and we do things, digital apps for companies worldwide, right? So I went to work for them in '94, and I've been working for them ever since. So I take care of sales and sell broadcast and sell 500 Fortune companies different types of technology and the digital realm or software side, and that's what we do. That's what pays the bills every day, right? The storm chasing is kind of the hobby side of things. It does pay its bills as well, but it's because it can't get expensive. It's like golfing or hunting or fishing, right? You got to spend real money.
You're having to stay somewhere. You're spending money on gas. God knows what your equipment costs. You also have the Starlink subscription now that you pay for. I'm glad to know we've talked about Starlink on here. Our co-host, another co-host, JR the Handler, that's usually with us, he's out on the road right now touring with Justin Moore, and they have Starlink on their tour bus, so they're able to stay connected and do all of that stuff. Man, that has to be a complete game changer for all of you guys that are out there.
It's huge.
Chasing,
a lot of people don't know this. I'll date myself when I tell you this. A lot of people don't know this, that back before we had cell phone technology, I was involved with another individual. We developed technology called Store and Forward, where you can take pictures or video of something and then record it on a computer and then have another receiver at the other end and actually use cell phone technology, analog back then, and actually transmit the video. And take 2, 3, 4 lines outbound and 3 or 4 lines inbound on the analog phones, and you put all the video together, and the lines drop off. It would still reconnect on the remaining lines and finish the video clip. You'd be anywhere in the world to do that. We did that before we invented cell phones. Yeah. So
didn't you?
That's crazy.
Don't you have a patent out there on some type of on that? Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yes,
You've always been on the cutting edge of how this is even possible.
Yeah. I've always been a technical nerd. I tell people when it comes to technology and weather or anything, if you've got the money and the science, we know there's a lot of things we can do anywhere in the world, right? If you got the people and the knowledge, we've got the skill set to do the unthinkable, right? Yeah. So we can do a lot of really cool things that people not dreamed of today. Right. So there's a lot of cool technology. And of course, Starlink just announced here 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, they're coming out with 2 more V3 receivers now. So this is going to be their next version of satellite. They're even smaller. One's going to be about the size of a MacBook. Okay, let me say this again. The new Starlink's in the size of a MacBook.
Holy
cow. Don't have any of the specs on it yet. As far as
crazy.
There's rumors that it might be powered by 12 volt. You might be able to put it in your briefcase, go on a plane, go to your cabin, go hunting, go fishing,
wherever.
go to another country. Right. And did
you use Starlink for Idalia when you were down?
Yes.
Okay, dude, that was so awesome because Brantley just turned me on to you then, and I'd woke up early that morning and I'd watched you the afternoon before. I think you were down around Clearwater or Tampa, somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're near Clearwater, and you were heading up to Perry. So that morning, I woke up and saw you. And dude, I was so surprised that connectivity remained, and I was like, "This is unbelievable. We're getting this." And so it was super cool, like because you stay connected 90+% of the time.
Yeah.
You know. So
yeah, it was it stayed connected. It was Starlink. You know, if you're in trees and stuff, if you get the more powerful one, right, the mobile version, it's got a stronger signal up and down. It helps with those tree cover when it's over the road and things like in Perry, right? It's a long tree cover.
Yeah.
So it's like the swamps in southern Louisiana. You get down those deep woods, man. You're like
going up. Yeah, that's right.
Right, exactly.
You're under a blanket, literally.
You're under a blanket, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Man, with technology, I have to think in the last handful of years, the last 5 years, if shorter than that, artificial intelligence, forecasting, all of that. I mean, you've seen it from putting phones on there and getting line by line to get a video across to where instantaneous stuff.
Right,
I mean, are you seeing forecasting getting better and better and better thanks to like open AI and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, OpenAI is gonna play a role going forward. The technology itself, just besides OpenAI and all that other technology, it's helping us. Technology has dramatically improved over the last 15 or 20 years, right?
Yeah.
As I tell people, used to have a huge array of equipment, and I don't have my cell phone on me, but basically, you can take a cell phone today or an iPad. I can go anywhere in the world and talking about an event, right?
Yeah.
You can go live from anywhere in the world, and those things. And now Starlink's talking about with T-Mobile, you can be live on text or emergency backup anywhere in the world. After the first year. So if you think about it, we can go to anywhere and talk about whatever you want to talk about anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the weather technology is getting better and better, higher res, it's getting better. Matter of fact, some of the days it's so good that we can target in a tornado side of things. You can target an area, generally a 1 or 2 county area, and say a couple of days out, like, hey, this is my target, right? And why, right? And so you can start getting very laser focused on where the high potential is going to be, and potential how intense the tornado is going to be, right? Not only is it going to be a tornado, but what kind of tornado is going to be, a weak tornado or a significant tornado. So the technology and the that kind of stuff is getting better and better every year, for sure.
That's what I love watching, is whenever it's just before you get into the stuff, it's the beginning. You know, this is you give the why. This is why it's happening. This is where it's coming from. This is, you explain that in layman's terms where I can understand what the hell you're talking about, because because if you get all technical and mumbo jumbo, it just starts to fly over my head, but that's one of your best skills. You say it fast. You got to keep up.
Oh man,
you got to keep up.
The message that's coming across there and how he's articulating it. I'm telling you, it was like I just suddenly seen, something I'd never seen, but it was like sliced bread. And I was like, this is so good. This is weather on another level. And I've been watching weather a long time. It really is.
Well, it's just, it's 45 plus years of chasing, but it's also looking at the technology. And really, it's just looking up at the sky. The sky will give you all kinds of clues, as we already talked about, right? So if you look at the sky, and if the model forecasts something that morning and it says, hey, by 3 or 4 o'clock, the winds in central Oklahoma and Oklahoma City, the winds are going to go from this maybe a veered wind back around to a southeasterly wind, and the shear is going to increase. Well, at 4 or 5 o'clock, the winds start backing. It's like, wait, the models has got that right. So then you start looking for everything else. There's a triple point. Here's the winds. Here comes the wave out of the Texas Panhandle. And oh boy, it looks like the bullseye is going to be just west of Oklahoma City at 5 o'clock. Well, boom, I've got Tyron Q going up at 4:30 just west of Oklahoma City. You start seeing all those pieces of puzzle come together. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much it's going to go full throttle. You know what's going to happen, right? Most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's putting those pieces of puzzle. But I'm really good at mesoscale, and I'm really good at understanding things. But what a lot of people don't understand is when you're out storm chasing, you gotta look at the atmosphere as 3D. And you got to figure things out spatially. If the wind changes direction, whatever that might be, what is it going to do to the atmosphere just because sometimes the bottles won't forecast. I'm going to have an east wind at 35 because a storm went by just to my east and put an outflow out. Well, now that I've got an east wind at 30, but I've got a southwest flow aloft at mid-level, all of a sudden my shears went through the roof and it wasn't forecast to do that. So all of a sudden now it's like, well, I'm going to have tornadoes now, and it wasn't supposed to be, right? And a lot of times these atmospheric accidents happen, and you got to be ready for them and understand, hey, this is getting ready to happen. And then explain to people what's going to happen before it happens. And I think people really enjoy that.
Oh, dude, it's phenomenal. It's like Tom Brady reading a defense in a 2-minute offense, right? It's like, and he's dialed in. It's the same thing. I can see for you, it's just all coming together, and the excitement, and it's all right there in front of you. It's all in slow motion, really, even though it's fast and furious to us. It's like, I can see it's like, here it is, guys.
You see how the pieces come.
You've seen it cool. With 45 years of doing this. You've seen the picture painted, but I think that has to be part of the thrill, is that no matter what, it's never the same. None of them are ever the same, and I guess that keeps the spice of wanting to keep doing it and put yourself in that position.
No tornadoes and no hurricanes. No two are never alike. No two Cat 5s, no two Cat 1s. New EF 5s or EF 1s, they're all different. So even in the same state, they're all different. They interact differently. They do different kinds of damage, and they're all inspiring and amazing, right? So because you never know what you're going to get at the end of the day. That's why I go out, because you never know what Mother Nature's going to give us, right?
That's right. And if nothing else, you may not get the tornado you're wanting to see, but you'll get some other picture. You'll see something unusual. Something is going to happen. You just get you're around. It's going to show out. Mother Nature always just shows out.
Something always happens.
Yes, it
something
does.
Crazy. Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen? Like, speaking of crazy, like, what's the craziest weather event? I should say. Let me keep it.
Oh my gosh.
Here.
That you've seen.
Wow.
We've seen you in some crazy weather things, but I bet you there's some stuff that we have not seen. You weren't.
There's lots that you haven't seen. The camera goes off, right?
Right. Exactly.
Gosh. Okay. There's a video online about this one. So me and Brian Sturtz, another chaser friend of mine from the early days, me and Brian I just got my van work done, and it had the U-joints replaced, because you got to be real methodical in keeping your vehicle up to date and repairs and things. And we're up in Agri, Nebraska, south central Nebraska. It's a weekend. It's a Saturday. And it's just me and Brian. I'm in my big conversion van at that time. And we're chasing triple point. Storm's up. It's tornadoing. I'm doing about 45 to 50. I'm not going very fast. The storm's only about 10 miles to my west. It's coming down toward us. We could see the storm. It's a big barber pole. It's rotating. Tornado warning in effect. And all of a sudden, I hear clang, bang, boom, and it's that horrible, bad sound you don't want to hear, right? And I could hear the transmission's going, but I'm not moving. I'm coasting. I'm just coasting down the highway. I look at Brian. He goes, "What was that?" And I said, "I think the drive shaft fell out."
That is not a good time.
That's terrible timing. Terrible timing.
Oh my Lord!
It was horrible timing. So he goes, "What are we going to do?" And so about that time, I remember Brian. So I called 911 and said, "Hey, my truck's broke down. This is who I am. This is where I'm located. And by the way, there's a tornado off to my northwest. It's moving southeast. You might pass on the weather service, and that's after the tornado passes. You might want to come and check on us, right?" So Brian. And his good eyesight, he's like, "Hey, there's a farmhouse up the road there about a quarter mile." He goes, "I think we can make it." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And about that time, the phone rings again. It's Kathy, my wife's calling. She goes, "Hey, what's happening?" I said, "You ain't gonna believe this. The U-joint fell out of the truck." And I said, "We're broke down." She goes, "Oh, quit kidding me. You guys are just pulling my leg." I said, "No, I'm not kidding, sweetie. This is real."
We're in a bind here.
I said, "The tornado's coming." And I said, we're gonna try to make it to the farmhouse. So we took off running, and we head westward, going up a hill, and then we break to the right and head north up in this pasture.
So you're heading right towards the storm. Yeah.
We're heading toward the tornado.
Yeah.
We're trying to beat it to the house. Right. And about that time, it's getting dark, and baseball hail is flying. You can hear it zipping through the air. As he goes by us, and we're running, And just as we get to the front porch, the front gate, the wind's probably about 70, 80 out of the east because the tornado's to my west coming at us. So everything's rushing back west into the tornado. Right. And she had, that house had the old farms, the little 12-inch little rails on the front porch to hold it up. Well, that and the wind, it's whistling like a Dixie. It's like, it's screaming, right? I mean, it's screaming. Oh, yeah. Well, the homeowner knew that we broke down, but she had the door locked. She had the porch light on. And when I beat on the door, she said, she came to the door, she didn't open it. And she says, "What do you need? What do you want?" I said, "Well, trucks broke down. A tornado's in your cornfield." And he said, "We got to go. You got a basement?" I asked her, "Do you have a basement?" And she says, "Yeah, but why do you ask?" I said, "Because we're going to get ran over by the tornado. We got to go to the basement now." So she unlocks the door. She unlocks the door. And Brian's carrying the camera, and there's in the old farmhouses, you got those old, the seal plates. You got to step up off the porch. You got those little seal plates on the door. So Brian trips on it, and he face plants inside the door. He goes, boom! He hits it, but the camera's still going, and you can hear the roar of the tornado coming. And then about that time, the 2x4s and stuff that punched on the outside walls. You hear boom, 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 and the roof's ripping off. You hear things cracking and break. Oh yeah! And I go, "Brian, we gotta run!" And all I saw her run through the kitchen with the flashlight. She's going to the back of the house and down the stairs in the elevator. She's going down in the basement to the kitchen, right? So I'm following her. She dives underneath a pool table once we got to the basement, and me and Brian are running down the stairs. And as I get down the stairs, where the back of the stairs, it's like the old basements, what those like. So I get underneath the basement, and my back's up against the floors, and the floor's bouncing up and down, trying to come out of the basement, and it's pounding. I mean, the dust is coming on top of us because the boards above us are ripping off. I mean, the nails are coming out of the boards. The Wamba 6 is on the basement ceiling, which is the floor.
From Twister.
Right. No, it's the whole 9 yards. So the roof's blown off, the walls are ripping off, and that lasted about 2.5 minutes. And we knew it's bad. And anyway, so the tornado, my ears are popping and all that kind of stuff. So as we turn around, I tell the lady, I said, let's go upstairs. And we went up real slow up the stairs. And just as I got to the top of the stairs, I opened the door. And to my amazement, the moon was out. The crescent moon was shining on the tornado, had just left the farm, and I could see the tornado, the big white tornado going through the cornfield to my east about a quarter mile. Wow. It's at the grain silos. It's heading, the farm's gone. You hear cows mooing and stuff, and they're hurt. And so anyway, the grain silos and all the tractor equipment is thrown out in the field. And this is crazy. On the north wall of this house is about the only wall standing, okay? They had a dial rotary phone on that side of the house. I picked up the phone. There's a dial tone, and I'm going to call 911. So I dial 911, and the guy goes, I think it's Searcy County Sheriff's Office. He goes, Searcy County or something. I believe that's the correct county. And I said, "Hey, this is Jeff. I'm out there." And I said, "What's your name?" She tells me her name. I said, "Oh, I'm at Route so-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so's house." He goes, "We got the cavalry coming." Well, power's out everywhere, right? So I'm on top of her property's on a ridge line. You could see for like good 10 miles every direction. Yeah. I see police fire trucks coming from everywhere. I mean, they are coming from everywhere. Okay. Well, anyway, they get there, and it was very interesting. I won't go into all the details, but it was very crazy what happened there. But anyway, so everybody's fine. They get there. They assessed my truck. My van's got one of the barns, grain silos has come apart, obviously, and it's lodged into my van. It almost cut my van in two. It went through the front windshield of the van, and it's lodged into the van. Oh yeah. So anyway, they called the local dealership, and the local dealership came and got the vehicle, and they brought me a new Tahoe. And I remember the particular general manager of the dealership, when he handed me the keys, he goes, "Man, you've had a really rough night there," because everybody in the county's talking about it. And he goes, "You have the keys." He goes, "You need to go find a hotel." So, which we did. And he goes, just come and see us tomorrow. We'll get you. We got your van. We're going to take it back to the shop, and we'll figure out what happened with the U joints and all that. And I said, we'll take pictures of everything because I'll need it for insurance and for the people that did the work. So anyway, he did that. When I got to the hotel in the shower, while I was washing my hair and cleaning up from all the debris flying, I had corn coming out of my hair.
Holy cow.
I had corn embedded in my hair. Just you're in the shower, you hear cling, cling. I look down, there's corn in the shower.
That's crazy.
Dude, that's insane. That's insane.
That's insane. That's my Edgar, Nebraska. We ran a quarter mile. And by the way, the moral of the story that year is I think OU and Nebraska tried to hire us as our quarterback that year because I think we broke some records running that quarter mile. Get away from that tornado. Right?
Bet you did.
Did you get some reinforced U joints after that? That's the question.
Yeah, I would say that was taken care of. Yeah, that problem got resolved quickly. Yes.
That brings up a good question. And this goes for not just you, all of you guys who are storm chasers. How the hell do y'all get car insurance? It's just something that I've thought of. You know, I mean, I sell insurance. I don't sell car insurance. I sell all the other stuff. I don't sell property and casualty. But I really and truly have wondered, how do y'all get insurance on vehicles?
I think it's like, well, for me, you just got to be careful, and you, as a rule of thumb over the years, I haven't had that many casualty losses. So you just got to be, be careful.
And don't worry, Jeff. We can edit. We can edit some of this out if we need to.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Do you use your vehicle for work? Yes. Nothing
yes.
It's used for work. Yeah, it's used for work. But it's like anything else. You have equipment and technology in the cars today that keeps you out of the path of the really bad stuff, whether it be the big hail or the high winds. And the occasion, I've actually, believe it or not, and I can tell you this, there's no secret about this, I've actually had more accidents not directly related to the weather, but because of the weather, such as a deer running out in front of you, right? Yeah. I mean, over 40 years, I'll probably hit 8 or 10 deers in my lifetime, right? Those kind of things, power lines down. It's those kind of hazards, other drivers, it's flash flooding, it's hydroplaning. It's not really the storm itself per se. It's the hazards of being in that environment and then having things. I had a tornado storm back 25 years ago in central Kansas. I had a deer come out right next to the road. I mean, the wheat was like, 4 feet high, 3 feet right on the yellow line. A tornado was coming and lightning was going boom, boom, boom. And a deer comes right out in front of the vehicle and goes boom, hit it and smashed the radiator. The fan ate the radiator. Boom, you're dead on the side of the road, right?
Yep.
So those things happen, right? You just it's deer, it's other drivers, it's those kind of things are as much of a hazard as anything else out in the field, to be honest with you.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, you got to have good tires, I would think, if you're doing this, so you don't hydroplane. I'm paranoid about hydroplaning because it's happened to me more than once. No fault of my own. Yeah. You don't see it's like black ice, and you just don't see it. It'll happen.
Yeah. Good tires.
Yeah, your car.
Good brakes.
Yeah, tires or brakes, and windshield. Wipers, windshield wipers, all that stuff is just super critical, right? In out storm chasing, right? All that stuff you got to take really good care of, right? It's really important.
Yes, yeah, it is, because when those things start to happen, that's when it shines, and it's a difference maker.
But you mentioned earlier, like your wife, is it Kathy? So she's a storm chaser too, right? Like she jumps in there and gets after it. Yeah. You guys are like the real Bill and Joe Harding, of Twister. Like it's based on your life.
Yeah. Kathy comes out and chases with me. We've been married 20 plus years, and she's not. I've taken her down Louisiana a couple of times on some hurricanes. Hurricanes, one of those things she's not too fond of, but because it's 23 hours of boredom and about an hour of total terrors. I'll tell you, just like things get out of control really quick, right? Yeah. So the tornado's kind of like more in control because you know where you're going, when the day's going to start and end, right? And as long as it's before dark, she don't like chasing after dark.
I don't blame her.
Which is
you can't see.
You can't, wise. Yeah. Can't see. All right. Can't see. Sometimes out in the high plains, you can see tornadoes off 20, 30, 40 miles off in the distance, right? If it's high base, right?
Yeah.
If it's rain wrapped in the southeast, but if it's out in the high plains, a lot of times you can see them.
Yeah. And you kind of going back to what you do with selling with Barron. I looked at their website because I'm interested whenever you and I talked on the phone. I was like, oh man, I guess they do have. Well, I've never thought about it. Somebody has to provide a radar that somebody buys. So I mean, it totally makes sense.
Yep.
But what all do you do? What all do you sell? Do you sell to equipment to TV stations?
Yeah, we sell to TV
to
stations, right? TV, and then we have a side of the company that sells to the government sector, like airports, aviation side of things.
mm,
We did the NOAA upgrade for NextRads, the dual pole. We did the upgrade for that several years back. So we have a facet of things from displays to the radar side, as well as digital side and the digital, and then also API data, which
yeah.
feeds people's apps and feeds websites. It feeds things on a global scale. So it's a whole gamut of everything.
Is that how you learned how to read all of these maps and different things? Is by
I
selling
was
that
pretty good.
equipment and understanding it, or
Yep.
how do you get there?
Yeah, I've always been in sales my whole life, even before I went to work for this company for Barron. But understanding map stuff, even in my early days, in storm chasing back when I was 14, 15, 16, understand maps and lat lawn and the azimuth and directory and understanding stuff in 3D in space. If something's here, where's it going to be at an hour from now in space, right? Because of time
Right.
travel and things and how things morph and move. But it's taken all that combination of experience over the years and just applying it to sales and business and obviously using it when I'm out in the field storm chasing, right? Because all that
Yeah.
technology plays in there. We have technology nobody else in the world has, such as our Baird shear markers and shear skits. It tells you where the storm, if it has rotation, where's it going to be and who's going to be in the path of it at what time. So it's all that technology, and it saves thousands and thousands of lives over the years, right? All across
Right.
the world.
And that's the name of this whole game. I think that's why you do it. That's why some others, not all others, but that's why the
Right.
good ones like yourself do that. It's an education on weather for the public, but it's also you're a scientist in a sense. You're gathering data that has not ever been observed and studied, especially with video and things like that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's super super important what you guys do, and hopefully over time that is going to lead to better forecasting,
It
even
does.
more
It does.
accuracy, and all of that. Because just the accuracy in the last decade with the hurricanes has been
Oh, it's crazy.
unbelievable.
It's
I
getting
mean,
really dialed in.
and I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes.
It
especially
really
a couple
is.
Yeah.
days out
Yeah.
and all that, but it's still. And then listening to you a day before a hurricane's landing, and your
Yep.
reasoning behind the kind of you narrowing your zone down of where you're looking, and I mean, you're usually dead on.
He was dead.
And
Hey, the first time I saw him, he was down in Clearwater. Said, "I'm heading to Perry."
in
And
fact, I've not
12
been
hours
watching
later,
you yet when
here
you
it
weren't.
was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's there. It's uncanny. It
Yeah.
all started back when you impressed your mom. I mean, it all makes
Yeah.
sense.
Exactly.
You've just got
Yeah.
it. You've just got the knack. It's just built into you, along with being able to understand all the technology and all that stuff. Man,
Yeah, it's like all
it's
the computer,
amazing.
but they're not all perfect. But they have biases, to them. Some is too fast, some are too slow, some are too cold, and some are too hot, and you gotta weigh all those factors out, and then kind of make your best educated guess. And then a lot of times it's more than ensembles, like you may have, European or GFS 50 member ensemble. It's like what it's not necessarily the outlier, a hurricane that says, hey, it's going to Houston, or this was going to Miami. It's kind of like, what's ensemble mean? Give me 50 members, and if they all average and says, no, I'm going to New Orleans, I'm not going to Houston or to Miami, then you look at the mean as like, where does the
Yeah.
average storm going to track? And so the ensembles over the last 5 or 10 years have really come on super strong, and that's where a lot of people focus their attention now. It's not just an outlier of one operational run. It's what does an ensemble mean show, and that's with it, whether it's snow or it's a blizzard or anything, or a flash flood event, those kind of things. You always look at what is the kind of the ensemble of all the members show, and then take a mean average of that, and that's going to give you a pretty good idea of what's going to happen, right?
What,
And most of the time they do a pretty good job.
what is it that's making them better? What is it? But what is it behind it? Is it the satellites? Is it what? I mean, what
It's
is it?
everything.
Everything.
It's not just one thing. It's how many layers of atmosphere you're sampling, like the European model, all the different layers of the atmosphere that they're sampling the data, both in vertical and then also in the grid. So the grid's getting tighter in the sense of the sample rate, and then how many times a day they're sampling the atmosphere, right, and the depth and the layers of that, and the more that those layers they have, and also the mega supercomputers, right? Those are getting faster and faster and faster, and those continue to. That's the key. It's higher resolution, more frequent updates, and those kind of things, and that gives us better results, better data, right? Because you have a better grid data. If you have information over block, and that's fed into the models, just like during the hurricane season, they have the Gulf Stream, they have all the hurricane hunters up in the Gulf Stream. They're doing all the soundings in the Atlantic, and they feed all that data in real time. You'll see the models will all of a sudden start getting in really close in once they start feeding that data into the models, right? It's all those samples of the upper atmosphere.
Well, that should just keep getting better. You would think over time, and with more connectivity and more data, being able to Starlink and things like that, you're going to be able to upload more and more data. Do you have a beef with Reed Timmer? Do y'all ever work together? Or
no?
That's my Donahue moment.
yeah, Donahue moment. No, I don't have no beefs with Reed. I think probably a few people probably misunderstand him, but he means well. He's very sharp, he's very sharp individual. He understands models, science side of really well, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Reed gets it. No, I'm good friends with Reed.
I figured.
Yeah.
How could you not? How could y'all not be? You're both Oklahoma boys, and y'all are.
Yep.
Y'all are not afraid to get in the front of any of this at all. I know everything about weather or what's happening in a storm because of both of y'all. I'm watching you both at the same time. But you're crazier. There ain't no doubt about it.
Well, I've just been recently turned on, and I'm blown away. And I've been a storm like even back in college when hurricanes would happen. I grew up in Alabama. We would come down and rent a hotel and get on the beach and wait for the storm to come in. Like I would always do that until I went through Opal and it came right over us, and then I went through Ivan, and then after that it's still cool, but I'm like way more respectful after those two storms.
Ivan was a monster. Yeah, Ivan was extremely bad. Yeah,
and I drove over towards the eye and stayed in a very fortified building, but it was very nerve wracking. Like I was. Yeah, I'd never seen anything like that. Yeah.
Ivan was really bad.
It's those sounds, and you captured some of that. I was watching it live with Hurricane Michael.
Oh yeah,
and then I saw on your YouTube too. I went back because I wanted to watch that footage again, and it sounded like a freaking F-14. I mean, it's scary, and I've only gone through. I stayed in Baton Rouge when we had the hurricane here a couple years ago that moved through. Yeah, and. It wasn't terrible. I was on my front porch watching stuff. It was just blowing 70, 65, 70. That's howling, man. With maybe some gusts to 80. I can't imagine 140, 150, 160.
Yeah, the Hurricane Michael was it got really, really, really crazy, especially when the eye wall, that last hour or two before the eye wall hit you. Hurricane Michael got it was pucker factor outside real quick. It was scary. Yeah, roofs were coming off buildings. I saw a telephone pole about 10 feet above the ground flying horizontally through the air. The 40-foot telephone pole just flying, just like crazy. A rocket.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard you mention how you had to have higher FPS cameras to catch those frames. It totally makes sense because they're flying so fast that so you can.
It's just a blur.
Slow it down and see.
All you see is a blur go by. You don't know what it was, right?
That is insane. How dangerous that is. You don't even think that something that big could fly, let alone just be it's a missile. It's a projectile. Man.
Oh, yeah.
That would, I mean, I guess that's the thing that you have to be the most cautious about. You have to be in front of those reinforced, it's flying debris.
Flying debris.
I see some of those guys that get out in some of that. You do not, you know what you're doing, but I see some these younger guys, I'm not picking on them, but I know they're just wanting social media likes and attention and stuff like that, but they put themselves in some pretty precarious situations that,
Yep.
The
debris and lightning. Yeah, the lightning. I mean, lightning. I'm morally scared of lightning. Right? Lightning's not going to give you those those little 10-second deals like, "Hey, I'm here. I'm about to strike." Right? I mean, I've seen some lightning. Really wicked. I do too. Lightning's just one of those things that doesn't give you a second chance.
It's beautiful from a distance, but I do not play with it. I don't mess around with it. We've talked about that. So I was curious. That was actually one of my questions. your opinion on lightning, because for me, I feel like it's after me.
Lightning scares the crap out of me. I've had a couple of close strikes. Luckily, I've never been struck. I stay in. I mean, it can be an incredible storm, and if the things, the storm's in the fresh development side, it's kind of like down in Florida. Man, the lightning strikes are just going to come ripping, right? I've seen some really crazy. I've had lightning hit telephone poles in front of me. I've had them hit fences in front of me. I've seen lightning hit cars. I've seen the whole gamut, right? So yeah, lightning. I'm super scared of lightning.
Me too.
I'll chase an F5, but I'm scared to death of lightning.
Isn't that crazy?
As you should be.
Yeah. No, it's coming. I mean,
I get it. Totally.
It's electricity coming straight at you.
Little to no warning.
No warning. No, and it's. I agree with Blasey. Like we've said, we've gone into that. It is definitely it's coming for me, but it ain't gonna get me. Something else will. I'm too afraid of it. Totally.
Yeah, I've seen some wicked lightning stuff, bad stuff before. I stay away from lightning. Lightning scares me more than anything, and it should, right? Right. I mean, it's just it didn't give you a precursor. It's going to strike. It just happens.
That's crazy. Hey, Jeff, we've got this guy. He's deceased now, but his sister-in-law, his name's Melvin Roberts, and he's from South Carolina. And allegedly, he's been struck by lightning like 12 times before he died.
What?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so I've reached out to her. I'm trying to get her on the show, and she's agreed, but she's a little busy right now. But she wants to tell me the story. But it's pretty wild, as you could imagine. I'm sure 12 times this guy's been struck by lightning. That's a lot. That's crazy. I mean. Do you think that certain people are like lightning's drawn like to some people more than others? Like, because I do. I mean, 'cause this guy's been hit 12 times. I feel like it comes after me a little bit more than it should too.
I don't know.
This is getting outside of your realm, but
yeah, I think. Well, I could make a comment, but I won't. But it's like. The good Lord gave us good common sense to get indoors, and it's like if lightning's striking, I'm not going to test faith, right? I'm going to get indoors or get inside the vehicle or get inside the house where you need to belong, right? And stay away from being outside and getting struck, right? Just no, not doing that.
It's kind of my thoughts, Jeff. Is I would have learned maybe after the first time, but I'm intrigued to have this lady's story and hear about him for sure. It's.
I feel like he enjoyed it. I feel like somewhere she's going to tell me he enjoyed being struck at some point. I have a weird feeling. Like, how do you get struck that many times without putting yourself in it? I feel like there's something odd there. We'll see.
Man.
We'll see.
That's a new record. I never heard of that before. So that's
well,
I'm not signing up for that.
We also whenever Chad whenever you were chasing that one in Florida this year, we got Bubba the Love Sponge. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy. I had not heard of him either until earlier this summer. But Chad knows him. He's this shock jock who used to be on Howard Stern and on Sirius XM and stuff like that, kind of out of my realm. He discovered us because we did a podcast talking about podcasts that we like. Chad talks about him, blah, blah, blah. Long story long, he broadcast your entire deal on his 4-hour daily show all across the whole state of Florida that day.
Across the country, man.
Yeah, it was across the country. Yeah.
So I texted him. I woke up early and I sent him because he was showing some crappy radar and some crappy slow cycle thing. And I was like, dude, check this cat out. So he puts you on because he also has a YouTube channel and all this. So he puts you on too. So while you were going, he was showing your feed as you were live. And but what's funny is he had like an old radar showing like the wind directions and the shear, and it was stuck in a stationary mode. You could see the play button had not hit play for like an hour. It's like this guy's full of it. It's not in Perry. It's still off the coast. And I was like, dude, Bubba, hit the play button, man. You just got to hit the play button. Your thing is delayed here. He is in the storm. I'm watching him. So it was pretty funny. But he did show you for like an hour of the show. Finally,
that's funny.
Me.
That's funny.
But it's stuff like that helps to get the message out, to get that because there are people that were in harm's way that may not have known about it, and he's on the radio as well and stuff, not just on YouTube. he's actually on FM stations too. So
Yeah.
yeah. I thought we'd need to mention that before we forget, because it's interesting. You never know what you're going to get on Tig's Bits. That's why, I mean, Jeff's made it an hour in here, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's you never know what you're going to get out in the field either, right? So I've seen all kinds of things happen right out in the field. So it gets interesting for sure.
You have,
I'm sure you have, man.
What would you say is been the most surprising storm that you've chased, where you go in thinking you're going to see something and you come out and it got crazy, just way crazier than you could have imagined? Boy,
there's several of them. I'd say Joplin for sure. Joplin was horrible. There's going to be tornadoes that day, being at that 5 levels of city, killed a bunch of people, injured a bunch of people. That was a horrific event. There's been several of those, that something bad's going to happen, but then it ends up getting worse than what you thought, right? Katrina was one of them. Yeah. Ivan was definitely way up there on the scale. It went from extreme to very extreme along the coastline, buildings collapsing, right, and those kind of things. So yeah, they're all a little bit different. Oklahoma City, El Reno, 1 and 2, both El Reno tornadoes were monsters, right?
Right.
And then more 1, 2, and 3. I've seen all the Oklahoma City tornadoes, the big ones, May 3rd, 99. That was a super mega outbreak, right?
Yeah.
In Central Oklahoma. So yeah, I've seen a lot of those big monster outbreaks, right? You never know. You know there's gonna be tornadoes, but you never know there's gonna be, they're gonna be on the ground for 100 miles, right? I mean, you just never know.
Yeah, and I've heard you. Of course, you won an Emmy, storm chasing as well. I mean, not many people that we've had it. I don't believe we've had anybody, Chad, who's won an Emmy on here yet. So that's awesome.
No.
That's
I haven't
awesome.
won one either. So I'm still empty-handed. Yeah. So.
Well, Chad will have to work on that.
Oh yeah,
we do.
We're going to for sure. But you've been a part of some of the biggest storms that have been broadcast in any shape, way, or form in the last 30 years, 45 years. But just, I mean, it's crazy but it helps your location, I guess, being in Tulsa. You're kind of at a hub, being in Tornado Alley. That allows you to go and chase those things. But I mean, the time and effort and money that you spend to go everywhere else is unbelievable. And I wanted to know, what is your gear like whenever do you have multiple phones? What kind of cameras are you using? All of that stuff.
So I mean, you got the early days. It's changed quite a bit, right? So today, a couple cell phones, couple iPads, love GoPros, have all kinds of mounts. Obviously Starlink, the Canon R5 got a bunch of Canon equipment, L lenses. Back in the early days, I was joking with somebody here a while back the other day. I used to have a Mac computer, desktop, and I'd have in the car with me, and I have a phone coupler, and I still got it, right? And you take the phone coupler, you go to a Texaco in Southwest Oklahoma. It's not there anymore, but anyway. You go put in, your quarters into the payphone to have like an 8-foot cord on it. So you can put the cord inside the car and roll the windows up, right? So I'd put that with the phone coupler. You dial the 800 CompUSA number, right? You'd hear dial tone and you'd be a whopping 300 baud rate. And beep, do the connection. And then you type in on your DOS command on the computer, I need OBS for Oklahoma and Texas. They come down one line at a time, real slowly on the screen. So you download all the OBS. And then you would disconnect, and then you get a piece of paper, you'd draw and have a map of the planes, and you put all the lawn and, temperature, the wind direction, and obs, overshooting top, blowing dust. You put all those deals, you figure out, hey, it looks like the wind's all converging here. I'm going to head to the state line on the Texas-Oklahoma border, and that's where you'd go, right? And you wait for the storm to develop and come at you. So, from those days, the early days. But now, honestly, gosh, you guys, you literally you can take your iPhone, your iPad, and you can go anywhere in the world and storm chase. I mean, literally. That's
crazy.
It is crazy, right? Yeah.
So that's a starter kit you need. So if I want to become a storm chaser tomorrow, that's my starter kit. Just an iPhone and an iPad.
iPad,
and a couple
iPhone.
of apps. Yeah.
Get you some apps going. Yep.
Man, what do you feel about this all of these now storm chasers, because there's a ton of them that are out there, and you know, like I said earlier, some of these guys I see, I don't think they're putting themselves in good places. They're not, you know, not everybody. There's some good ones. There's some great ones out there, I know, but it seems to be everybody's got a camera now. Everybody thinks they can go and do this the way that you have done it, the way that Reed Timmer does it, you know, using analytics and being smart about it. And then now there are all these YouTube like weather channels in a sense. You know, I'm not naming names or anything like that, but this is kind of the modern age. How do you feel about that?
It's everybody's got to make their own path, their own way, right? So it doesn't look. Nobody, how do I say this? I'm trying to be, I don't try to compete with anybody else. I'm kind of I set my own way. I'm my own guy. I'm doing my own thing. And I think your work has to speak for itself, right?
Yeah,
and I think that goes with anybody. Just like you guys is hosting the online, you're not competing with other people who do other podcasts, right? You guys are doing your own thing, your own way, and it's same way in storm chasing. You're going to do your own thing. Look, I filmed over 1,000 tornadoes. I've been in over 50 hurricanes. Hey, if somebody's going to break my record, try to get there, more power to them. Go after it. Go get it done, right? So look, everybody does their own thing, and I think it's just one of those things that you. Everybody's got to make their own way, right? And just got to do it safely. That's my word of caution, is do it safely, right? Because a lot of times there's a lot of gotchas out there, and if you're not careful, you'll get caught, right? So you got to be really careful.
Yep, for sure. Well, there you go, folks. That's as good of advice as you can get if you want to get into storm chasing. Then hats off to you. But do it safely. Do you still do tours for folks?
Oh yeah,
I've taken up tours. Not as much as we used to. We do more of I'll have more of a kind of a documentary type people. Like if they want to do a movie, I do documentary, and we've taken out like singing groups, band members and things, and different people like that for different adventures. But mainly it's more of the private, where someone will call you up and say, "Hey, Jeff, we got to come out for 2 weeks in May, and we really are interested in tornadoes, but we need a bunch of this kind of material for our documentary or for our movie or for a commercial or for this." And we do a ton of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's not so much like, hey, John Q. Public's going to pay me to take him on a tour somewhere. We've done that in the past, but it's more specialty type stuff where somebody needs something specific on a chase, right? They need if they say a tornado, great, but really they need what we call B-roll. They need all the other stuff leading up to the chase. Like it's the drive, it's the hotels, it's out in the country and you're filming, cows or horses out chasing out on an open plains or something, right? They need all that B-roll. And so we do a lot of that type of work. Right.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, totally makes sense why they would hire you too. They know what you know what you do. That makes total sense.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's what I do.
That's awesome. Were you involved? I know that I've seen it like pinned on your X, your Twitter, with Twister when it came out. Like I know you went to the premiere and all. Were you involved in that movie at all?
No, not the first one. Not the first one. No, the second one's coming, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But the first one, I just there for the unveiling there in Oklahoma City Country Club, and Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt were there, and it was a great event, and it was really cool.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
Well, we're going to have you back on whenever Twister 2 comes out, because I know that you can't talk about. I know you can't talk about those things, and we totally want to talk about those things. So we're just going to have to have.
I think Twister 2 comes out. It'll really cause another massive rush of people to go out and get into the storm chase, and it'll hyper explode again, just like it did the first time. And this time it'll do the same. Oh yeah, it'll get really.
If you're getting amped up for it, then I can't wait, man. Then that amps me up. That totally amps me up. Well, Chad, do you have anything else? I mean, we could talk to you for hours, but I try to keep it as condensed as possible.
No, I appreciate it, man. No, Brantley covered a lot. I know there were blizzards we can talk about, but maybe we can do that another show. That's like a whole other series in itself.
Oh, yeah.
But like,
hurricanes and tornadoes. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me. I appreciate being on the show, and didn't know about you until you tagged me, and I was looking at the show and was like, hey, it's pretty damn cool, right? So it's like, yeah. So I was like, yeah, I wanted to come online and be on with you guys. I appreciate you reaching out to me. I really do.
Absolutely. We appreciate you. Hey, listen, if you're ever down here and you need like a camera guy, a guy just to carry stuff around, you're chasing a storm and you're in the Panhandle, just reach out to me, man. I'll be glad to help out any way I can. So
be careful when you offer that, because I might be calling. You never know, right?
I'm in.
I know you're
awesome.
Thanks, Chad.
My wife asked me today. She said, "So, do you think this could ever lead to you being in a chase with him?" And I said, "I highly doubt it, honey. But God, I hope so." And she said, "I knew you would say that." And I said, "So you never know." And now I feel like there may be a chance. Also, the offer stands on my end. I'll ride with you anywhere, anytime.
So we could actually take a road show on the road out chasing, and you just do it live and go, this is what we thought was going to happen, but this is actually what happened, right? And then it's unscripted, right? You never know what's going to happen.
Let's do it.
I like it. Great.
It does sound phenomenal. Great. We'll come to you, man. We'll come to Tulsa and do this, and we'll go chase some of those tornadoes. That'd be fun.
All right. Let's do it.